Good evening. Before we start, the City Council just met on 2 closed session items, and there is nothing to report. We value public participation and the opportunity for community members to address the council. To ensure everyone can be heard and that we are able to conduct city business, I want to remind everyone that comments must be delivered in an orderly and respectful manner consistent with our meeting rules. At this time, could our Community Development Director, David Lloyd, just remind folks of meeting decorum and our code of conduct, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll just read a couple of sections from the protocol manual, again, just for general notice. Obviously, the meetings of the City Council shall be conducted in an orderly manner to ensure that the public has a full opportunity to be heard and that the deliberative process of the council is retained. Persons addressing the council shall be made in an orderly manner and shall not include personal, impertinent, slanderous, or profane remarks to any member of the council, staff, or general public. Council members shall wait patiently, commenters shall wait patiently in the designated area for their turn to speak. And with regard to audience members, they shall not engage in disorderly or boisterous conduct, including the utterance of loud or threatening, abusive language, whistling, stamping of feet, cheering or jeering, excessive clapping or snapping, which disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of any council meeting. And obviously, these protocols are in place to ensure that there's fair and equitable access to your proceedings for everyone who's in attendance tonight. And so we strongly encourage folks to participate in a way that is welcoming and respectful to everyone.
Thank you, David. And thank you for viewing the March 4th meeting of the Arcata City Council. The City Council meeting is being held as a hybrid meeting with both in-person attendance and teleconference via Zoom. We'd like to do the land acknowledgement now. The City of Arcata acknowledges that the lands we are located on are the unceded ancestral lands of the Wiyot tribe. The land that Arcata rests on is known in the Wiyot language as Gudini, meaning over in the woods or among the redwoods. Past actions by local, state, and federal governments removed the Wiyot and their indigenous peoples from the land and threatened to destroy their cultural practices. The City of Arcata acknowledges the Wiyot community, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. This acknowledgement seeks to aid in dismantling the legacy narratives of settler colonialism. If you would like now to join us, please join the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Mayor White.
Present.
Councilmember Matthews.
Present.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Here.
Councilmember Stillman.
Present.
Vice Mayor Atkins Salazar is absent, but we do have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, so if you are in person, please line up behind the podium when the item you would like to speak on is accepting public comment. If you would like to make a comment during this meeting, either for individual agenda item or during the second oral or written communication period under agenda item number 11, there will be 3 ways to do so. As I said, you can line up at the podium. If you are logged in on Zoom, please raise your hand when it is time for your comment on the item that you wish to speak on. Or if you are on the phone, please press *9 on your phone to raise your hand, and when it is your turn, you will be prompted to dial *6 on your phone. For these items, we will be taking in-person public comment first, and then we will be moving to comments online. We will not be going back and forth, so if you are wanting to comment, please line up on the podium or at the podium and raise your electronic hand as soon as public comment is requested for that. And just to remind people online, when we do ask for your hand, we will be taking those who have their hands raised, and then we will stop those comments. So, ceremonial matters. Certificate of Appreciation for Scott Davies for his 5 years of service to the city of Arcata. Scott Davies is in person here to collect his award, and this Certificate of Appreciation will be read by Council Member Matthews.
Whereas Scott Davies was first appointed to the Planning Commission on March 4th, 2020, and served diligently until December 2025, and whereas Scott's background in business, finance, organizational leadership, and regional coordination on a range of land use topics were indispensable to his approach participating as a commissioner and ultimately leading the commission as chair, and whereas Scott's balanced and fair approach was focused on results, he ensured that the public applicants, staff, and his fellow commissioners had ample opportunity to provide their insights into a decision, but he also ensured that decisions were made regardless of whether they were easy or not. And whereas Scott led the Planning Commission through the Gateway and General Plan comprehensive update process, ensuring a fair and balanced process that allowed complex consideration of a broad range of policy topics to be deliberated and settled in real time. Leading these meetings required a facilitator's skill and tact, as well as a firm lead to ensure discussions were moving to resolution. Scott rose to the occasion. And whereas Scott didn't let his strong and capable leadership skills get in the way of a little fun, his use of ChatGPT to refine the Planning Commission's annual report to Council, a usually important but fun-free task, into a poem was very well received and well played. And whereas the Council, his fellow commissioners, and staff appreciate his contributions and service over the last 5 years, in particular, leading the Commission through the General Plan Comprehensive Update. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Arcata hereby expresses its appreciation to Scott Davies for serving the people of Arcata for 5 years. We wish him the best and commemorate his release from service as of December 31st, 2025, dated March 4th, 2026, signed by Mayor Kimberly White.
Thank you all.
I don't have a poem tonight, but if I make an update to the supervisors for the Headwater Board, which I'm working on now, I will definitely do that in iambic pentameter. And I just want to say how much I have enjoyed collaborating and getting to know the council and city staff. It made it a rich experience. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Proclamation recognizing March 8th, 2026 as International Women's Day. And today we have Carolyn Hammer to accept this in person. And this proclamation will be read by myself, Kimberly Mayer. All right, so recognizing March 8th, 2026 as International Women's Day, whereas at this moment people in this country and around the world are experiencing heightened conflict, planetary harm, and attacks on basic human rights, including increased restrictions on women and enforcement of restrictive gender roles. And whereas International Women's Day, celebrated by the UN and in many countries on March 8th, celebrates and honors women and girls and elevates their work defending their rights and the rights of all people. And whereas women around the world carry much of the burden of war and violence, increased repression, and shortages of basic necessities caused by conflicts, concentration of wealth and power, and by the climate crisis. And whereas in effort to provide food and shelter, safety and peace for their families and for themselves, many brave women leave their loved homeland for in other countries, including ours, and in the presence of these women and their work benefits all of us, while attacking and imprisoning a migrant, destroying families and lives and hurting all of the other communities. Whereas these women, as well as women of color, Black and Indigenous women, and the women who face oppression based on religion, disability, gender or identity preference, language, culture, or class, have unique perspectives and knowledge that help all work towards social and environmental justice, peace, and safety locally and globally. And whereas all of us benefit from the work that women do, from caring for families and friends to leading countries and working towards a better world on every level. We thank and honor all women and girls, appreciate their achievements and their contributions to our society, and support their voices as they work to bring peace, justice, and harmony to the world. Now, therefore, it be proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Arcata hereby recognizes March 8th, 2026 as International Women's Day and encourages all community members to take action on the international theme of Invest in Women and to observe this day by participating in local events and working to create a more inclusive world where all genders are able to live their fullest potential, free from discrimination, oppression, and violence. Dated March 4th, 2026, by myself, Kimberly White, the mayor. Please, yes. And would you like to share a few words?
Yeah, a
Thank
lot
you,
shorter
Carolyn.
than that. I didn't write it this year. That was a long one. Yeah, but thank you. Yeah. I just, you'll have to excuse me. I have a cold sore that just decided it would break into bleeding. So, yeah, don't do that tonight. Anyway, I'm here representing Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, Humboldt County branch, and also Centro del Pueblo, who we're teaming with for the International Women's Celebration this year. This is our 15th year to bring this to Arcata, and 1 year, what was her name? Mrs. Deemer, our former manager.
Karen.
I know, and I've known her for years, but it's just one of those nights. Anyway, Karen was our main speaker one night. Anyway, this year we are teaming again with Centro del Pueblo, and their children and young adults will be bringing their culture to the evening with the Mariposa dancers, which are the little kids that are just adorable, and the high schoolers that just stomp their way into absolute recognition of and honoring their culture. And it's so lovely to see these young people being willing to get out there off cell phones, etc., to just represent their culture. And we'll have 2 mariachi bands, Cal Poly and Centro de Pueblo. And on top of that, this is almost as long as the proclamation. We will also be graced with poetry from Pat McCutcheon and a sing-along led by Leslie Quinn. It's all starting at 4:30 on Sunday, March 8th. And we really, and there will be snack food, not a huge spread like we used to do pre-COVID because it's just gotten to be too much work. But we're getting food from Los Bagels and a gift certificate from the co-op to make snack food. Let's see, we're going to have a raffle that evening, and we're going to have at least one of the resistance hats that Marguerite Pierce has made for us. She also has contributed a lot of kiwis, and we're going to have other stuff, but I don't know what it all is. It's a dangerous time for a lot of people, whether it's our immigrants, for soldiers that are going on to ridiculous wars, it seems. Anyway, it's a time when it'd be nice to join our voices and our presence to honor both our immigrants with their beautiful culture and to just join our voices together to sing in solidarity for peace, freedom, justice. I don't have a poem, but I did read a thing today by Bobby McFerrin, and this is what he said. One of the simplest and most direct ways of praying and meditating is through singing. And singing in community is especially powerful. You get people together in a room singing, and you instantly knock down all the walls, the creeds, the gender, age, race differences, everything. You're all one at that point, lifting your voices. So I just want to invite all of you to come and lift your voices in solidarity. That starts at 4:30 on Sunday in the Redwood Racks part of the Creamery building. Okay, thank you for the proclamation.
Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome.
All right, so now we have a proclamation in recognition of Girl Scout Week, March 8th through the 14th, 2026. And to the recipient to accept this in person is Cheryl Kingham. And I totally remember you. My daughter, she's almost 22, was in Girl Scouts then. And this proclamation will be read by Council Member Schaefer.
And as a former Arcata Girl Scout, Troop 278 and Troop 78, happy to read this proclamation. Whereas March 12th, 2026 marks the 114th anniversary of Girl Scouts of the USA, founded by Juliette Gordon Low of Savannah, Georgia in 1912. And whereas throughout its long and distinguished history, Girl Scouting has inspired millions of girls and women with the highest ideals of courage, confidence, and character, helping girls gain leadership skills and learn the lifelong lesson of contributing to their communities. And whereas this year, more than 3.2 million Girl Scouts nationwide, of which 25,000 of these are Girl Scouts of Northern California and over 300 here in Humboldt County, celebrate 114 years of this American tradition. They look to the 59 million women who are former Girl Scouts as living proof that the impact of this amazing movement. In our 119th session of Congress, 64% of female senators in the U.S. Congress and 49% of female House of Representatives, all three former female secretaries of state, 92% of all female astronauts, 20% of Fortune 500 CEOs, and numerous successful businesswomen have all been Girl Scouts. 5 of the 9 most recent female governors are also Girl Scout alumni. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Arcata hereby recognizes the week of March 8th through 14th, 2026 as Girl Scout Week and applauds Girl Scouting's commitment to developing the leadership skills of America's girls. And that is dated today, March 4th, and signed by our Mayor, Kimberly White.
Okay, go on up, ladies. And they have some cookies for the council. Come on all in. There we go. All right, Sophie, turn around, look cute. All right, you get to keep the cookies, ladies. You want to pass them over?
Well, thank you very much. So I just want to mention that everyone on the Arcata City Council, the women that are present, we're all Girl Scouts.
And I was aware of
Former
that.
Girl Scouts.
Yeah, I was aware of that. Janice Grondowski, I'm guessing? No. Your troop leader was? Deanna. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, thank you, Mayor White and council members. And yeah, I've been around for a while. I've been a volunteer for 24 years, actually, with Girl Scouts. I'm honored to represent our local Redwood Service Unit as their leader advisor. I also have a high school ambassador senior troop. And we currently have 11 active troops in the area with over 100 girls in Arcata, McKinleyville, and Trinidad. And you've just met a few of them there. Our cookie booths have been out in front of the store since February 4th. They'll be there until March 15th. They serve as a reminder that Girl Scouts is alive and well in Humboldt County. I'd like to thank some local businesses for letting us have our booths in front of all the Murphy's Markets, Eureka Natural Foods, and Safeway, among others. And to thank the wonderful Humboldt customers who've so far helped troops sell 15,000 boxes of cookies. Humboldt is always generous in that way, and we're really grateful. Girl Scouts have been selling cookies for 108 of the 114 years that we've been in existence. And yes, it provides money for the troops to do their activities, their camping, their service projects, and it also financially supports our council, the Girl Scouts of Northern California. It's a valuable learning tool, and it's a beloved tradition that's also the largest girl-led entrepreneurial program in the world. What's more important, though, to me today is just to state Girl Scouts is more than crafts and cookies. It's a leadership program with a mission to build girls and young women of courage, confidence, and character. And we want to help every girl uncover the strength and purpose within their lives. We create and support a safe space and a sisterhood that a girl or young woman needs to explore who she is and who she wants to become. Like in the proclamation, whether she wants to be one of the 92% of female astronauts, become a governor of a state like Iowa, Kansas, or New Mexico, or become Secretary of State, a scientist, go into business, be a caregiver. They just need to find their passion, but to do that, they need confidence. So being here tonight gives me a chance to also acknowledge that we have a strong older girl program. So you just met some cadets, some of whom will soon be in high school. Yes, we have adorable daisies and brownies in the area, but half our troop are middle school or high school age girls. They camp, kayak, rock climb, enjoy archery, participate in community service projects for veterans, senior citizens, animal shelters, and they run events for the younger girls, and they're great role models. And so whether they want to be a council member, I should have also said, that's another goal. So I'm just asking the general public, next time you think about Girl Scouts, don't think about them just as selling cookies and making crafts. And also don't think that Girl Scouts is just for little girls, because clearly it is not. So when you buy that box of Thin Mints or trefoils, know that you're helping a leadership program and you're helping young girls become successful in life. So thank you for honoring Girl Scouts with this proclamation.
Thank you, Sharon.
All right, that brings us to a proclamation in recognition of March for Meals Month, March 2026. And today we have in person Tasha Romo to accept it in person. Make your way up to the podium. And this will be read by Council Member Stillman.
Thank you. So March for Meals Month. Whereas on March 22nd, 1972, President Richard Nixon signed into law a measure that amended the Older Americans Act of 1965 and established a national nutrition program for seniors 60 years and older. And whereas the Humboldt Senior Resource Center observes the National March for Meals campaign to raise awareness about escalating problems of senior hunger and isolation in our communities. And whereas through the Older American Act Nutrition Program, the Humboldt Senior Resource Center has served the Arcata community admirably for 51 years. The center provides nutrition meals to seniors which help to maintain their health and independence and avoid unnecessary hospitalization or premature institutionalization. And whereas the Humboldt Senior Resource Center, Congregate, and home delivery meal programs provide a powerful socialization opportunity for hundreds of seniors to help combat loneliness and isolation. Now, therefore, it be proclaimed by the City Council of the City of Arcata that March 2026 is March for Meals Month. The Council urges all residents to honor the foundations, service organizations, businesses, and individuals who support our senior nutrition program, as well as the seniors they serve. It's dated March 4th, 2026, and signed by Mayor Kimberly White. And I will come with your proclamation.
So I just thank you for having me here today. I work within the Nutrition and Activities program, but I started with Humboldt Senior Resource Center 13 years ago, actually running the Arcata Dieting Center. So it's always had a really special place for me because it's my foundation with the organization, but also because it's a spectacular partnership. I really feel like the way the city of Arcata comes out to support seniors in this community is unmatched. I mean, we're so grateful. The seniors are so grateful. Our nutrition program provides 150,000 meals to older adults a year, and 48,000, just over 48,000 of them, come out of the Arcata Community Center. And that would not be possible without your support. So thank you so much for over 50 years of partnership and connection, and for making sure that seniors in this community not only have a nutritious meal, but connection, a safe space, and the support that they need to age well in place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tasha. All right, staff reports, or do we have any reports for committee or commissions? Not tonight. Okay, great. That brings us to staff reports. All reports shall be specifically limited to city business and shall not request or lead to action by the council at this meeting. We will be receiving a presentation on public partnership collaboration from the Arcata Community Center Solar and Energy Efficiency project from the City of Arcata's Deputy Director of Environmental Services, Emily Benvey, and Roku Fukui, and I hope I didn't butcher that. Program Manager with the Redwood Coast Energy Authority. May we receive an update now?
Yes, thank
Wonderful.
you. Can you hear us? Is this good? Can you hear? Yeah. Difficult to follow such strong proclamations, but here we go. So many of you know Emily, but my name is Roku Fukui. I'm with the Redwood Coast Energy Authority, RCEA, and we were asked to present on this project, but we thought it apt that it was a joint presentation because it truly was a collaboration between the City of Arcata and the Redwood Coast Energy Authority. Emily will present on some of the high-level objectives and goals of the project, and then I'll go into some of the nitty-gritty details.
Thanks, Roku. So to provide a little bit of context or a teaser, so to speak, this particular project was several years in the making, which Roku will share more about. But some of our goals were certainly the environmental and energy benefits, switching to LED lighting for our sports complex and interior of our community center results in energy savings and lower energy use. And then certainly rooftop solar has its benefits for natural resource as well as building resiliency into our community, which I'll say the community center is an emergency evacuation point. So really having that built-in resiliency is a huge driver of the project. Additionally, our community center really is a hub of community, as in the name. We have a ton of private rentals, drop-in classes, senior dining programs, recreation programs, the list could go on. And really having good lighting is something that one might take for granted until the lighting's not so great. And so upgrading to the LED fixtures really has made a huge difference in having a really well-lit community center that can meet the various needs of the community. So I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but the goal of installing the solar and energy efficient lighting, again, was to have those energy efficiency benefits, those climate resiliency benefits, the reduction of greenhouse gases, and then being located at the main community center also serves as a visible example of clean energy in action. So community members can see the community center as a demonstration site for how we can decarbonize our buildings to contribute to that community pride and align with the community values of environmental stewardship. And then the more nuts and bolts piece, again, as I mentioned, is the LED lighting lasts longer, so our maintenance time and effort is less. It costs less to operate, fewer bulb replacements, fewer maintenance disruptions. You never like to have your lighting go out during a community event, so this helps to buffer against those mishaps. So to get to this point, as I mentioned, there were a lot of different touch points and coordinated engagement. I think Roku is about to share the timeline to really showcase how long this project took to come to fruition at the grand scale, as well as how much collaboration between Redwood Coast Energy Authority, our JPA, as well as the city of Arcata it took.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Yeah, I put this timeline up here, and I won't go through everything, but this just shows the first assessment completed on the Arcata Community Center was in October 2010. And through that, there were various iterations of reports and assessments and various recommendations. Some taken, some were put on hold based on funding and financing issues. Our CEA is able to do this through our partnership with PG&E. We call it a local government partnership, and through that, we're able to provide no-cost energy assessments and reports, as well as some project management for public agencies. This specific project, which is called the ECA project, which is there December 2022, was a loan through the CEC, the California Energy Commission. ECA stands for Energy Conservation Assistance Act, and it's a low-interest loan for energy efficiency and solar installation. But yeah, I mean, this just goes to show the engagement between RCA and City of Arcata is long, and sometimes these projects have to evolve and change based on various constraints. These images were dug up from reports, and it was a fun exercise to go through this. But yeah, from 2022, this was the initial solar proposal, and the final proposal was the 2024-25. And I'll go through some of the nuances that, yeah, that we experienced. I am a data person, so I just thought I'd throw some graphs in here. Sorry, this is very hard to see up here, but the top two, this is the Arcata Community Center, electric use and gas usage. So you can see the, on the left-hand side, and again, apologize for the small font, is the demand, and on the right-hand side is the bills. So you can see the top left graph, that is electricity use, and that's pretty flat throughout the year. The right-hand side, that's gas use, and you can see in the winter months, obviously higher because that's used for heating. The bottom graph is a load curve. The red area is what we call peak demand between 4 o'clock and 9 p.m. in the evenings. That's when electricity is a little bit more expensive. And I'll just go through these very quickly. This is the parking lot, the Northfield lights and the Southfield lights. You can see, I mean, it's kind of obvious when you look at it, but the parking lot lights, they operate in the evening. Northfield lights and Southfield lights, there's a usage between around like 4 p.m. and 10 p.m. And that's seasonal, so obviously more in the summers. And summer, winter, and annual, and I just thought I'd break it up to see kind of this load curve of these of the usage of that aggregated electricity use at that area. I'll skip through these. But yeah, I mean, I am trained as a economist for all my sins, and so what the loan likes to see is a payback period that makes sense. It needs to pencil out. So when we do energy efficiency projects, the high capital cost is quite restrictive for many public agencies and everyday people. But the California Energy Commission is supportive of these efforts if it makes sense on paper. And so some of our efforts was to demonstrate that and show how it makes sense. So these reports that started in 2022 had to demonstrate that. The first initial ask was to look at feasibility of carport solar. So that's the car park in front of the Arcata Community Center. And what we determined was that the cost would be too high for this project because there were a lot of infrastructure upgrades, and that's why you typically don't see carport solar in California, because there's also rate schedules that you need to follow. We refer to this net energy metering, NEM, and that's essentially, to break it down, is the credits that one gets for solar on their bill, and that has been less and less appealing. So now we're in this is under NEM 2.0 is what we refer to it in the industry. But it made sense to oversize an array to get as much credits on your bill as possible. We are now in a NEM 3 era, which doesn't necessarily make sense because those credits are reduced. And so this was the project that we proposed to kind of right-size the the solar array on that roof-mounted on the roof of the Arcata Community Center. And this is actually not AI. This is a real drone shot, which I'm very impressed about. So I just thought I'd put it in there as a solo shot. And that's the final. I'll just go back one because that was what was proposed. And that's, you know, done by drawing little squares on a picture. And this is the final, the final array we took a drone picture of that because we were so proud of it. Yeah, do you want to take this?
Sure. So, as with any large-scale project, even with most small-scale projects, lessons are learned. And so I wanted to share a few of those lessons that we learned going through the course of this project. The first was navigating unexpected obstacles. That, in this scenario, was getting ready to bid our solar project and realizing that the community center roof was due for a replacement. And that is quite a large capital expense that we didn't initially plan for or expect. And certainly you don't want to put a new expensive solar system on top of an old roof. And so that was definitely a learning lesson as far as really, we probably could have done a better job of identifying that years prior. But as we came to realize that, the silver lining of that was that the council allocated Measure H funding to support that capital improvement of the new roof. And we did go for a metal roof to have that longer lasting time frame and to make the solar project actually cheaper to install because it is more cost effective to install solar onto a metal roof than it is an asphalt shingle roof. And I also want to take a moment to highlight, which I'll get into some of the final thoughts, but highlight the community buy-in and partnership that really makes these types of projects possible. And so certainly RCEA and the city's longstanding partnership in this particular realm going back to 2010, and more recently on this particular project going back to 2019, having that really strong JPA and city staff partnership is really instrumental in seeing these types of projects move forward. And then the other partnership that's really important to highlight coming off of this roof replacement piece is the partnership of city staff, the city council, and the community. So the community passed Measure H funds. This type of project aligned with the intention of the Measure H fund in supporting the community resiliency, and the council backed that by allocating funds to support this roof replacement. So I just really want to underscore that these types of projects are huge collaborative efforts across different community sectors. Some other lessons that we are learning certainly is trying to future-proof and ensure that we've got good long-term operation and maintenance with solar. Oftentimes, solar arrays will get installed. Particularly, we've been learning in public-type institutions, they'll get installed, and as staff turns over time, and this is also true for homeowners, things aren't always operated and maintained as intended at the install. So really wanting to make sure that we've got good O&M for the solar. We also had what could be considered a happy accident in that we have a battery backup project also completed at the Arcata Community Center. That project actually came through the Self-Generation Incentive Program, which is a PG&E funded program. So there was a separate project, separate contractor. It was totally moving sort of in its own direction, but the timing of the battery backup install happened to align with the timing of the solar project. So we're not quite there yet, but our intention is to be able to tie the battery directly into the solar behind the meter so that in events of power outages, they can work together, whereas right now, the battery is in front of the meter. So they're not directly talking to one another, to put it simply, but our intention is to get there so that, again, getting back to that resiliency center aspect of the community center, the battery and the solar will be able to act in concert. And then certainly evaluation and continuous improvement, recognizing that lesson learned, identifying the roof sooner than later is one sense of evaluation and continuous improvement so that as we move forward into more and more decarbonization capital improvement projects, we can be learning from these lessons past.
Yeah, I can take this. Yeah, Emily mentioned some of these already, but yeah, I mean, some things to leave the council with is, you know, the partnership between City of Arcata and RCA has been strong. A lot of public agencies don't realize that RCA provides this no-cost service and public management and assessments, but having the staff on the other side, on the public agency side, and having, you know, strong capacity within that staff is important. Emily and I were just emailing today about invoices that are needed to report on this, but having responsive folks is extremely helpful. And from our side, showing that meaningful financial savings to public agencies is necessary. A lot of these public agencies aren't flushed with funds or strapped rather. So being able to demonstrate, throughout the process of when NEM2 is closing, maybe there's a different rate schedule, a billing schedule, a different kind of program design that could be ideated on is useful. I also think, the city should be commended for its efforts in this. I'm always delighted when I'm asked to present at the Energy Committee meeting, because they are, knowledgeable people who want to do good and are kind of like mission driven. And again, Emily mentioned this again, but in the past month, I played pickleball there. I was playing futsal around the corner. I would go to the repair cafe, and my kid goes to the camp there. So having that as a symbol of what the city is, I'm proud to be a Arcata resident. And then finally, it also has to do with timing, because a lot of this is funding dependent. So we were lucky enough to secure that ECA fund, and we are, our staff are always have an eye out for the next funding round to make sure that we're prepared to go after that. And we have done assessments on the on FoodWorks facility, as well as some of the other City of Arcata facilities. And I'm keen to move this as this wraps up to look for the next project. Yeah, thanks. Anything else that you want to?
I think we left out one high level detail that it's gonna stay in my mind if I don't share it, which is that the project overall came out to be $300,000 not for the re-roof, but for the solar, the sports complex lights, and the interior. The Echo loan is, I believe, a 1% loan, so great interest terms, particularly in this day and age. And just, really underscoring the importance of the city and RCEA partnership. While the city is flush with very smart technical staff, energy efficiency is not necessarily our realm of expertise. And so really having that RCEA partnership helps us be able to leverage where our different strengths are and really building a better community together. So appreciate the opportunity to get to work on this project and looking forward to the next ones.
Thanks. That's our email address, and there's cookies available. We'll take them down here too.
All right. Thank you both, Emily and Roku. Really, resiliency is a passion of mine, and it's good to know that during an event, disaster, or even a planned outage, that we are capable to be completely off grid and that our lights will be on. So thank you for that wonderful presentation and collaboration. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add?
First of all, thank you guys. And I'm glad we were able to coordinate this, because when you kind of gave that really high level overview at RCEA, I was like, oh yeah, there's so many great projects. And Beth was like, oh, we got a good presentation. We should have them come to the city council. So thank you guys so much. But I wanted to ask, or just go back to the battery tie-in, because I know that under NEM 3.0, obviously it's a lot more financially advantageous to have a battery backup, but so you said it's in front of the meter right now. And so, is it hopefully looking to that eventually that will help even better with our finances once we can get that tie-in, and how will that work, and what's the timeline for that?
Sure, yeah. To speak to kind of my high level understanding of energy related technical projects. So our solar feeds to the front end of the meter, and then the battery is behind the meter. So what that means is when the city takes in energy, it's able to charge the battery, and then solar power generation happens, and that feeds directly into the broader PG&E grid. So it doesn't power the electricity system of the building directly. It kind of routes through the grid, basically. And so our intention is to have the solar feed directly into the battery, and the battery feed directly into the building. It turns out we're kind of on the leading edge for this type of idea and this type of market. So one of our engineering staff is really savvy in the energy world, and he actually reached out to a number of Schatz Energy Research Center staff to try and come up with a creative solution. The long and short of it is the piece of equipment that is needed isn't yet on the market. It was, and it got pulled off, and should be coming back soon. So once that's on the market, we'll be trying to advance having that solar battery tie-in.
Okay. See, that was like the thing I was hoping was possible, and it sounds like the equipment is still being developed, so that's cool. Thank you guys. That's really interesting.
Anyone else? It's exciting that we're like cutting edge here. That's, yes. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. All right, so that brings us now to oral and written, cookies. You did ask for cookies.
Just on the record,
Please
I
take
bought
them
3 boxes,
away.
so no,
Share
I
them
don't
with
need more.
everyone. Come on up and pass them out. Yes, please, please. There's plenty to go around. Here, take these too. Oh. Awesome. All right. So now that brings us to oral, written communications and cookies. The city council values your comment. The public comment period allows people to address the council on matters not on the agenda. This early section of public comment is limited to 15 minutes, and speakers are limited to 2 minutes each. If you prefer to have a full 3 minutes of time for your public comment, this item is continued at the end of the meeting under item 12, where speakers are granted 3 full minutes. Please know that pursuant to the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss or take action on items not listed on the agenda. The council, however, may respond to statements. There will also be time to provide public comment specific to each item when that item is being reviewed by the council. So please make your way up to the podium. We will take 15 minutes. So let's see, that would be the first 7. Come on up. If you have a card. Yes. Yep. Step up to the podium.
Yep. Okay. Hello, we are Elisa and Jacob, some of the officers of the Student-Led Child Development Association of Cal Poly Humboldt.
Our organization was awarded a $2,500 Students Transforming Tobacco Education and Policy grant called the STEP grant. Throughout this project, we collaborated closely with NorCal for Health and conducted interviews of college students who have used nicotine, exploring how they started and the tactics that have kept them hooked. We developed a brief focused on tobacco's impact on children, families, and communities, with particular attention to how these tobacco companies have deliberately targeted youth through the marketing and design of vaping products, and how these strategies have contributed to a resurgence of nicotine addiction among young people. Nearly all of our remaining grant funds will be donated as school supplies to Arcata Elementary, where we do our field work as child development students.
We have learned about the hazards of tobacco use and the predatory marketing practices the tobacco industry has employed to make vaping and smoking appealing to young people. Our campaign is ongoing, and we will be leading informational workshops to local middle school and high school students, including flyers, handouts, stickers, and coloring sheets designed to communicate the health risks of tobacco in an accessible and engaging way. We are proud to have engaged with our peers, our schools, and our broader community in this effort.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to our presentation.
So I would like to add that this is really problematic. It looks like a children's plaything. It's very accessible to get. It lights up. And this is, from the interviews that we conducted, this is the entry point on how people, they start with this, then they get into smoking, or they continue with this and they keep buying them and buying them and buying them. And it's just so pervasive in this community and across the country. So we implore you to use your authorities to help our community. Thank you.
Thank you for that very important comment. I used to be a project coordinator for the North Coast Tobacco Education Project through St. Joseph Health System. I think I was communicating with you perhaps through email. You have an event coming up, I think, in May sometime. Yes. Yeah. So we're excited about hearing more about that, and I'll see you there. All right, next person, come on up.
We also have flyers and brief in the interviews.
Oh,
Can we
wonderful.
leave
Great.
them on the table?
Somebody
Perfect.
will take that and we will get them. Thank you again. All right, next to the podium, please.
Hello, my name's Elissa. I have Mia, Tyler, and Brayden with us. We are also collaborating with NorCal for Health for the same STEP grant, and we also have some handouts if you guys would like us to hand them out now or later. We're students from Cal Poly Humboldt and part of the California Teachers Association Future Educators Club, and all of us are pursuing our degrees in education. Our purpose today is to talk to you about having City of Arcata implement a tobacco retail license to help protect our youth. As I said, we are participating with NorCal for Health today through the Students Transforming Tobacco Education and Policy Grant, otherwise known as the STEP grants. We conducted this project in exchange for funding for our club that we hope to use for merchandise going to conferences such as the CTAAE. In our project, we explored 2 research points. First, we conducted a survey in October of 2025 where we asked education students what they see while observing inside classrooms and day-to-day life. You can see the data on the handouts when you guys later get it. We asked them questions and most of them said that they don't see anything during their observation, but this could be due to the fact they observed K through 5th grade. But they do see minors talking about tobacco products outside. And as they said, it does have to do with vaping. Second, we went to a total of 8 stores in Arcata that sold tobacco products. 3 of them were gas stations, 5 of them were smoke shops. Mia would go inside and try and see if she could buy a tobacco-related item without being ID'd. All of us are over the age of 21 while we were doing this research, and also no products were bought. 2 of the smoke shops did not card her. While that does not seem high, minors are obtaining tobacco products, and those very smoke shops could be the ones selling to them. Implementing a tobacco retail license could establish oversight and accountability for retailers, helping to reduce illegal sales to minors. So let's protect our youth together. Thank you. Well, bring them your handouts. Thank you.
Important work that you're doing. All right, Sean.
Hey, good to see you guys. Happy International Women's Day if I don't see you before then. And thank you so much. Appreciate that.
All right, ready, go.
Thank you so much. Good to see you guys. And I just wanted to say happy International Women's Day. The date of 8th March, many of you may probably know, has a lot of significance with anti-war as well as anti-fascism. And so obviously there is those important connections, just supporting women being against war and fascism. Also, happy Ramadan or Ramadan Mubarak. It is Ramadan currently, and we have a really big step as a community that we just took. We have actually just opened a new mosque in Humboldt County here in Arcata. So this is a real milestone. This also, I wanted to talk to you about a proposal from the Redwood Peace and Justice Coalition for a ceasefire resolution regarding the war with Iran. And so I'll leave this for you to check out, and hopefully we can talk about this. If you have any thoughts on it, please let me know. This war even underlines the importance of supporting Gaza, as the Redwood Peace and Justice Coalition has done over the past year with our Sister City project of trying to become an official sister city. Hopefully you guys will vote for that and make that possible. But we really want to focus on this current ceasefire. But we do have a fundraiser on Friday. Come check it out. A Loud Neighbors concert, 15-piece brass band at the Presbyterian Church. And we've just recently transferred $7,200 to Gaza for Ramadan meals in Gaza City. So let's work together and let's see what we can do with this ceasefire resolution.
Thank you for your comment. Next.
Hello, I'm gonna preface this with I'm not much of like a public speaker, so if I'm stumbling over words and things like that, bear with me. My name is Rowdy. I am a born local here in Humboldt County. I'm a licensed barber in the area, so I've been here my whole life, all 21 years. I recently started volunteering with the Redwood Peace and Justice Coalition, and and Sean asked me to be here, and I want to kind of speak in support of this resolution on condemning the ongoing U.S.-Israeli military operation and kind of just share my perspective on it. All 21 years of my life, there's been conflict in the Middle East with my country, and so much tragedy and suffering and pain. What's happened in Gaza has had such a toll on my heart personally, and that's why I'm now volunteering. And yeah, the thought of potentially going to another war and all the terrible murder and pain and suffering that could develop from that just like weighs so heavily on me. As a barber, I've been also volunteering with, I don't know if you guys know the organization AHA, but they do showers for the homeless and things like that. I recently started volunteering and giving haircuts there. My first time was actually yesterday. And giving those haircuts and seeing how much joy is brought to the faces of these people in our own community, I can't help but think about the billions of tax dollars that are going to be spent to fund murder and genocide when these tax dollars could be funded to support our own people in our community that are suffering. That's a nonprofit. The thought of if we had true funding, the amount of help we could provide to these people in our own communities that are suffering. So yeah, that's just me sharing my support on the resolution that's proposed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Go ahead.
Hello, Council. Dave Meserve. Yeah, I'm here also to support the idea or to support having you pass a resolution to end the war on Iran. I'm sure you know it started last week and there was no permission from Congress. There was no checking in with Congress. And there was also no cause for it. We were in the middle of negotiations with Iran. They were supposed to meet again with us on Monday. And on Saturday, we started bombing them. And one of the first things that happened is we bombed a girls' school, or Israel did, one or the other, and killed over 100 people. So it's terrible, and it's happening again, and we should all feel that. I support the resolution that the Redwood Peace and Justice Coalition came with, but I also looked at it, I don't know if you've seen it yet, and it's a little bit long and involved. I think a short resolution would be perfectly adequate, because what you're really doing is being a megaphone for our voices. I know that there's a huge majority of people here in Arcata who oppose this war. And when we can bring something to the city council and have the city council pass a resolution, that then becomes newsworthy. It gets out there and it lets people know how the people in Arcata feel. And yes, I know it takes a little time and a little bit of money, but not very much of either. And it doesn't really get in the way of all the local things you need to do. And I did give you a shorter version of the resolution, and I would look forward to perhaps being able to work with one or two of you and Sean and come up with a revised resolution. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next.
Hi, Council. Can you hear me? Yeah. I want to echo what these folks have said. We're in another illegal, immoral war. I don't know who could, in their right mind, could possibly support this administration and the insanity that they've unleashed on our entire society, both domestically and now abroad, in the biggest way that you could imagine. So this is your chance as a city council. We care about what's happening here locally, but we have a voice and we care about what's happening overseas as well. So if we can get some kind of consensus, get this on at least up for a vote and move through this process quickly. I'll echo what the last gentleman said, that you don't have to be fixated on a particularly large or lengthy or elaborate ceasefire declaration. Get something that comes from the heart and speaks the truth. And I think everybody in the city can get behind that. So thanks for thinking about that. And we know that your dedication to previous ceasefire announcements have been unanimous. So I'm hoping that you can all get behind this and unanimously support it as well. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have room for one more? I think that was 6. Am I counting correctly?
We're 12 minutes into the 15-minute
Okay.
public comment period.
Come on up.
Thank you. I'll keep it very brief. I really appreciate the words of so many people here, and I appreciate the work you guys do too. I think it's difficult to run a city, and you're doing a great job. Appreciate that. And I know we'd like to just keep our focus on taking care of ourselves here, but I think all over this nation, there's probably cities like ours that are probably going to take the opportunity to voice their concerns about going into another war. And I hope we'll join that voice and become a part of the nation of saying, we want to take care of our own challenges. We don't need to be off into another war. And so thank you for considering the resolutions that have been presented to you. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't really have time to bring anybody on Zoom.
There are no hands raised.
Okay, great. All right, so that brings us then to the consent calendar. All matters of the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the city council and are enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of any of these items. If discussion is required, that item is removed from the consent calendar and will be considered separately. A, approve the waived reading of the text and consent to read by title only for any ordinance on this agenda. B, approve the minutes of the city council meeting of February 18th, 2026. C, bi-weekly reports on disbursements. D, adopt resolution number 256-41, adopting a list of projects for fiscal year 2026-2027 to be funded by the Senate Bill 1, the Road Repair and Accountability Act. E, adopt resolution number 256-45, approving the amended and restated joint powers agreement of the Redwood Region Economic Development Commission, REDEC, and authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement. F, approve an amendment to the Bike Share Program Memorandum of Agreement with Cal Poly Humboldt to extend the term for 3 more years and increase their contribution to $43,000 per program year, and authorize the city manager to execute all documents. And finally, approve a letter of support for Assembly Bill 1708 regarding homeless housing assistance and prevention HAP program, and authorize the mayor to execute all applicable documents. Would any council member or staff like to remove an item from the consent calendar?
While not hearing anyone wanting to do so, I would like to move for adoption of the consent calendar.
Okay, and do we have any members of
I will second the motion, and then we can,
any members of the public waiting to comment on any of the consent calendar items? If so, please line up at the podium now or raise your hand on Zoom for public comment on the consent calendar items.
Hello, my name's Joanne McGarry, and I don't always, prior to these meetings, look at things like the biweekly report on disbursements. However, I think it's really important that I hope that all the council members look thoroughly at that. And I just also want to say that the different government entities like the Board of Supervisors or the Eureka City Council, their consent calendars are handled a little bit differently in the language and how things are explained. And I just sometimes think it's really a hard thing to look at when you're looking at this particular consent calendar, trying to figure out what is actually on it. And so I just would love for us to consider a clearer way of describing things on the consent calendar, especially when you're talking about resolution numbers 256 dash blah, blah, blah. maybe a heading title of the Road Repair and Accountability Act, and then talk about what you're talking about, so that when we're looking at it, we're trying to understand what it is you're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, so we have a motion from Councilmember Stillman and a oh, anybody online? My apologies.
No, we do not.
Okay, great. And a second from Councilmember Schaefer. If there's no more discussion on the motion before we vote, shall we, all those in favor?
Aye.
And I am aye, so motion passes. And that brings us to old business, initiate adoption of the comprehensive update to the city's local coastal program, statutorily exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, guidelines section 1565. Can we have a staff report from Community Development Director David Loya, please?
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and council members. I do have a staff report and a presentation just to walk you through a couple of the amendments that were made since we published this in February and to outline the process for you. Sorry, I got a little distracted. I just realized that it says that the local Arcata Local Coastal Program adoption hearings February 2026. I understand we're in March. They started in February, so forgive me for that. But yeah, we'll be looking at a couple of the changes. I'm hoping that you had an opportunity to watch the Planning Commission. I'm seeing a lot of nods. That's great because I went into a lot more detail about changes that we made in that meeting. I don't intend to go into that level of detail here, but am happy to discuss anything in detail that you do have questions about. Can even pull up the documents if you wish to get into that level of detail. But really what we're hoping for here tonight is to introduce the ordinance. The local coastal program is comprised of two pieces. One is an ordinance that is the zoning regulations, and then one is a policy document that'll be one of the elements of our general plan. And so we're introducing the ordinance that you'll adopt at a later hearing, and then also adopting the resolution that will become effective once everything is certified. So that's the main action here tonight. We are going to ask that you open for public comment. I know there are a couple of folks here that are interested in making comment on that. And so without further ado, I'll jump into the presentation here. So I wanted to run through real quickly just for context, and this is a little bit of a duplication from the Planning Commission meeting, but just for folks that are new to this tonight, about the local coastal program overview. And this is a very, very cursory overview, but the local coastal program, or LCP, it's important to understand it only regulates areas in the coastal zone, and it in fact doesn't regulate every area in the coastal zone. It only regulates really some of the developed areas. Most of the undeveloped area is in the Coastal Commission's retained jurisdiction, so they do the regulation of that area. We are allowed to regulate mostly the developed areas in the city of Arcata. So it doesn't affect all the work that we just did with the general plan update, and it's not going to have an impact on the work that we're doing right now to update the land use code. In fact, the local coastal program basically mirrors the general plan work that we did. We just went through a whole public process and said, these are the zoning districts that we want. The local coastal program functions as an overlay to those. And the citywide zoning ordinance, local coastal land use and zoning, and the general plan are all mirrored layers. So I can get into the details to why we layered them like this if you're interested, but I just want you to know that we're not adopting something new. It's not different. It's the same as what we adopted, but just in a different document. So in general, our approach was to, again, establish our base zoning in the citywide zoning code, the land use code, and then to use the coastal zoning ordinance as an overlay. Part of the reason we're doing this is because our approach is to only add what's absolutely necessary to regulate land use in the coastal zone and to not add anything else. We don't want this to be superfluous. If the city wants to adopt regulations that have to do with the window pane patterns that need to occur on buildings, we can do that. in our zoning ordinance, our citywide zoning ordinance. If that's not pertinent, and I don't think it is, to coastal resource, then it doesn't belong in our local coastal program. And that's kind of the approach we took. Again, in part from experience that we had over the last 20 years implementing our previous LCP. So I want to touch briefly on the major changes that occurred since the Planning Commission's review, and these are based on Planning Commission comments and Coastal Commission recommendations. I'll walk you through just a couple of those. The first has to do with our sea level rise adaptation strategy. You may recognize this map, which shows in red our Zone 1 and in yellow our Zone 2. Areas that aren't red or yellow are outside of both those zones. And we have specific sea level rise policies in Zone 1 and Zone 2. Zone 2 is generally an area where we anticipate retreat sooner rather than later and having less infrastructure established to protect those areas. Whereas Zone 1 was really established as an area where we have critical infrastructure like the wastewater treatment plant, the oxidation ponds, the corp yard. We have a lot of private infrastructure in these areas. And so the idea was to treat Zone 1 slightly differently in the policy and the practice to allow for protection of those areas for as long as it makes fiscal sense to do so. We're not going to throw good money after bad, but we also don't want to tell the people in this area, the sky is falling, you need to retreat now when there's going to be sea level rise impacts in 50 or 70 years. So that was our overall strategy. The Coastal Commission pointed out that that strategy sounds really great in areas where you have a lot of important infrastructure or built out private areas, but private properties. But they focused in on this area to the north here, and in particular, these three properties that they said, look, your approach doesn't really apply in these three properties. Specifically, we have this parcel that's to the farthest west, which I think we threw this into Zone 1 because the city was considering acquiring it at some point. It's actually outside the city boundaries, and so I don't think this really belongs in our LCP. If we acquire that property, we can amend it. The old industrial electric property to the east of that, the Cal Poly owns, and so the Coastal Commission was concerned because there are wetlands on this property and it's a state property, and so they wanted the ability to consider whether or not that property should be protected in other permit processes, not by policy on its own. And then the next parcel to the east of that, they really pointed out that this is a largely underdeveloped, a largely vacant parcel. And so using the rationale of having this special zone with the ability to encourage and incentivize redevelopment of it doesn't really apply here. And they wanted us to strip this out of Zone 1 as well. They were very persuasive in their pitch for this, for the rationale that I just articulated, but they were also very persuasive, stating that if we put this forward, they're going to make this a condition of their certification that we remove those parcels anyway. I think based on the work that we've been doing with the Coastal Commission over the past several years, and really the intense work that we've been doing over the last 6 months since we brought this to you in the fall, I think it makes sense for us to pull these parcels out of Zone 1. I do want to point out that in particular, this parcel that is largely underdeveloped, that property has been developed since prior to the Coastal Act. There are provisions in the Coastal Act that allow for the ability to protect against erosion as it was envisioned originally in the Coastal Act, or sea level rise as we currently envision it. That property has the ability to protect itself from sea level rise because of the fact that it was predates the Coastal Act. So even though we're removing it from Zone 1, there are still some protections that would be afforded to that property. The other change that was made was Waterkeeper proposed some changes to our outdoor lighting section to make it a little more explicit and specific, tying it to the International Dark Sky recommendations. And staff was amenable to that. The Planning Commission made a recommendation, although they didn't look at the explicit language. They did say, yes, let's do something like what they're suggesting. And so we made these changes, and I have them here for you if you want to read through them. Basically, they essentially boil down to, ensuring that it's real clear what these standards pertain to, making sure that the standards that we're using here in underline and strikeout are very specific to the amount of lumens for different fixture types, and then also to put a little more detail as to what type of standard that we're referring to. So the California Green Building Standard Code, and one or both of the following. So it's either certified by International Dark Sky, and the way that Ben Noble, our code writer that we've been working on, the consultant who's been working on this in detail, who, by the way, is here tonight to answer questions. He mentioned that the way he describes this is that this bullet number 1 is really for the homeowner who's going to, the mill yard to pick up a fixture. They'll know that they're dark sky compliant because the fixture will say it is on the box, and that's the easiest way to understand it. And then for folks like Roku who can data nerd out on this stuff, there's this other bullet number 2 that it has a maximum bug rating of B3U0G1. I'm not going to attempt to explain to you what that is. If you have questions, Ben can advise you on that. And so these were the main changes that we made, and really tried to incorporate what Waterkeeper had recommended to us. They seemed like good changes. Other than those changes, from the document you saw in the fall to the document that's posted now from February, there was a lot of work that we did with the Coastal Commission. I said it at the Planning Commission. I just really want to reinforce this idea with the City Council that Coastal Commission staff have been fantastic partners through this all the way along. They've given us great feedback. They've really worked with us to take language that we proposed based on our community feedback, the council feedback, and the Planning Commission feedback, and shape it in a way that they felt like had the best chance of being certified. And where they found language that they just felt couldn't be certified, they were very upfront with us. We all recognize there may be a small number of topics that we still don't see 100% eye to eye on, but that's what the next process is intended to work us through. The timeline that we're looking at is March approvals, and so today's meeting and then your next March meeting will be the local approvals of the LCP. We have been working on a package to submit to the Coastal Commission, and we think by April or May at the latest, we'll be ready to submit that application formally requesting the Coastal Commission review and approve, certify our LCP. There's a 90-day statutory period during which time they have to approve that. That ends in September of 2026, let's say. But they can also ask for a year extension. Given their hearing load and that sort of thing, they will likely ask for an extension. They have up to a year from that 90-day period then to hear this item at the Coastal Commission. And when we met with them the other day, and when I met with them the other day, I asked them, okay, I get it, you have up to a year, but what can I tell my council? What good hope can I give my council about the actual timeline? And we didn't really get a solid timeline. They did mention that, they'd like to be able to do the hearing, I believe in August, I think they said, that is local. It'll be in the North Coast region and hopefully somewhere in Humboldt County, so that folks can actually go to that hearing that are interested in attending that. But they did really reinforce that the work that we've done over the last year and the intensive work we've done on these documents in the last 6 months or so has given us a running start. They feel like they'll really be able to, get it done well in advance of that additional year they'll need. So, so that work has borne fruit in many different ways. I do have the slides that I presented. I'm not going to go into them unless you have specific questions that I can call up. that I presented to the Planning Commission. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have and encourage you to open this for public comment. And then I didn't get a chance to consult with our clerk, but there is a slight modification that I'm asking for the approval tonight to incorporate those comments. And I have that motion written here so that we can do that succinctly. And while you're doing public comment, I'll confer with Rhea and make sure that we're on target.
All right, thank you for that. Do we have questions or comments from council? How about I start from my right, please?
Sure. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you, Community Development Director Loya. I know this has been a career-spanning project, and it must be very fulfilling to reach an important milestone. I watched that Planning Commission meeting at your recommendation, and wow, we have a really amazing, very brilliant Planning Commission. It was a really great discussion. They brought up some really salient points and really answered any questions that I would have and probably ones that I couldn't even think to have. So I just really appreciated watching that presentation. I think the only thing, if you want to talk to a little bit, I think that was kind of an outlier was that commercial visitor serving. So and I know that was kind of a sticking point. So if you want to talk about that really quickly.
Yeah, I can touch base on that. I also wanted to mention that Amber Levitt with the Coastal Commission, one of the folks that we've been working really closely with, is also online. And so if you have questions directly for her, she'd be happy to answer them. Okay, so the commercial visitor serving area is a concept that we've been talking about for the last couple of years as a way to try and encourage redevelopment of the areas south of Samoa that are subject to sea level rise. The area that's outlined in the dashed line here on the map is the area that we've been looking at for commercial visitor serving, and it encompasses properties like the ones shown on the aerial image here. A lot of these are old industrial uses. Many of them have, they were, courtyards or there's, the Arcata scrapyard is down there. Some of these properties have been basically a holding yard for, old vehicles, potential for contamination, that sort of thing. And so, if the concept here was that if we didn't do something to incentivize redevelopment of these areas, the highest and best use given the zoning type of industrial limited is largely what you see on the ground now today. And so as sea level rises over time, those properties are going to be largely the same, eventually maybe having the contaminants that are on them mobilize into the environment. And so the commercial visitor serving was envisioned as, again, another overlay to this zoning district that would allow a lot more flexibility, would allow things like Redwood Curtain or Rampart, the types of businesses that you see in the area that really are appealing to, locals, place to go and hang out that's close to the marsh, but also something that will be attractive to people visiting Arcata. As we dug into the detail, the Coastal Commission was, on board with this. They appreciate the idea. They understand how it relates to our sea level rise adaptation plans, and they appreciated that. But as we dug into the details, commercial visitor serving has a very specific detail to the Coastal Commission that they'd like to see, in that you're prioritizing those uses and really de-emphasizing other uses, which didn't mesh real well with the way that we were proposing this, because we still want to allow, for example, these light industrial uses to expand if they wish to. Well, if you have a prioritization of a commercial visitor serving and you also allow for and that's prioritized over what you also allow for as industrial limited, it became a little murky about how you do those expansions of industrial limited. So what we proposed was to allow a certain percentage of these parcels or properties to have commercial visitor serving as a threshold, a minimum threshold. And currently our proposal is to have 25% of the properties have those commercial visitor serving uses. If we drop below that threshold, then commercial visitor serving is prioritized, and a new use that's proposed has to have a commercial visitor serving component. If we're above that threshold, then we let the market make its decisions. If it's a new commercial visitor serving use, great, we're getting more of those. If it happens to be an expansion of the industrial uses or, expansion of a residential use, then that's allowed as long as we're over the threshold. Coastal Commission is still reviewing this. They haven't given us a definitive answer on that. But that's our proposal to make sure that there's maximum flexibility in the area so that we're not discouraging reinvestment in that area. If we make the zoning constraints too strict, you'll depress people's ability or interest in investing in that area. So we're trying to balance those things.
I want to ask a question about the gateway overlay because I'm trying to look at it on the map and kind of understand here. But so does that impact anything with the? Of course, you have it's in the slideshow. Yes. So does it impact anything with like the community benefits program or the form-based code, or is that overlay kind of super? So yeah, just talk to that point, just so I can make sure I'm working it out in my mind correctly.
Yeah, no, that's a great question because we did put so much energy into the gateway and sort of how does the local coastal program affect it? So I'm going to try not to go too deep here, high level. But I do think it's important to note that the gateway area is in an area that currently in our local coastal program is in a categorical exclusion area. The categorical exclusion area is an area that was largely developed with urban uses, didn't have coastal resources, and when we got certified before, the Coastal Commission said, look, anything in this categorical exclusion area that's principally permitted or has a number of different uses, you don't even need a coastal development permit for. And so what that's telling us is within these urbanized areas, within the gateway, within the area that's shown on the map here, and just to orient real quick, here's Samoa Boulevard, here's the city boundary, this is the Barrel District. Within that area, within the areas that are in the coastal zone and in the gateway area zone, these areas are already fully urbanized, and we accept that there's going to be development in them. When we went through the gateway process, we talked a lot about, principally permitted pathways and trying to create ways that development could occur in a more streamlined fashion. The portion that's in the coastal zone, in order to implement that in the gateway, it has to be certified first. So what we did with the gateway area, and this is actually true of all the overlay zones, is that we zoomed out as far as we could possibly zoom out and give as little detail as possible to ensure that we were protecting coastal resources, but still implementing what we have in that underlying zoning. So for the gateway, for example, in the local coastal program, it gives the maximum build-out potential that mirrors what's in the gateway plan. But it doesn't give all the detail. It doesn't go into the minutia because a lot of the detail is about design. It's about, setbacks and stepbacks and how the building forms are going to look. None of those things affect coastal resources. So we left all of that, the community benefits program, all of that is left out of the local coastal program. So someone who wants to develop in the gateway area, if they're in the coastal zone, you'd first have to, I think of it like dropping a pin through several layers. You drop a pin through the local coastal program layer. Once you've cleared that, and that's the biggest envelope you have to clear, you then get into the gateway zoning and you design your project around that. You're ministerially approved. We have in the local coastal program a ministerial approval process that we can apply to the gateway area. We can apply it to accessory dwelling units. There may be other uses in the future, but that was kind of the vision so that we made it so that there's not an interference. It doesn't conflict with the other zoning work that we've done.
Alex.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, what is the distance on, let's say, K Street that's not in, when do you stop being in the coastal plan on K Street, for instance?
That is a really good question. In fact, that reminds me, I forgot to mention that when I pulled this image up. The dark blue line is approximately where the coastal zone is. And so everything to the west or south is in the coastal zone. Everything to the north and east of this blue line is outside the coastal
So
zone.
if I was going down K Street, 8th Street,
Yeah, so the coastal zone boundary kind of comes up and wraps around Bayside Road,
right?
Bayside Cutoff. I'm sorry, Bayside.
Mm-hmm.
And then it takes a jog through downtown here. We're basically along 5th Street here, and then it jumps up along 8th. And then there's a little jog across the Barrel District here before it leaves the city, and then it comes back around Visade. So Visade is inside the city limits, outside the coastal zone. And here's V Street here. So then it cuts up V Street and then wraps around through the bottoms.
Okay.
Where it comes back into the city is 27th Street to Alliance to Spear.
Okay, thank you. The other thing is when you were talking to the planning commission, you mentioned that there was a piece of property that you was not zoned correctly and that you had to change that zoning. That's out on, well, people call it different things, but you could call it the North 40 area. And so how long does it take to change something and bring it into the right zoning?
That's instantaneous. So the couple of zoning designations that were updated in the current map, so what we're currently proposing and what your introduction and adoption will include is to zone these two properties at the south of G Street from industrial general to industrial limited, to zone this area that's in the Barrel District from open space to Barrel District. So this entire section was open space before. The intention was to have this as part of the Barrel District. And then there were a couple of parcels off of Spear that we somehow missed when we rezoned all of the rest of this residential very low density to residential medium. And so this is just bringing these few parcels in line with the zoning designation here and also in line with the existing build out, the current build out of these properties. So we will make all of those changes in the LCP so they'll be consistent with changes that we'll have to make in our underlying zoning and land use. And we'll be doing that with our contract with Lisa Weiss Consulting as we update the land use code to be compatible with the general plan work that you just did. Yeah,
I
that's.
thought I pushed it on, I'm sorry. 2027, when that was, in case they wanted to go out for a year. So would that be something would preclude anything happening in that area until until we have that adoption?
So we do need to have the certification completed and the other zoning changes completed before those zoning changes are applied. Again, I don't think it's going to take us until September of 2027 to complete this work. But yes, in order to develop on any of these sites where we have zoning changes, those will have to be done after the certification of the local coastal program and after we update our land use code. Okay. The land use code amendments will be done late this year, early next year.
Well, I heard you talk about that in planning commission, so I was wondering how far out that would be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
While this is pulled up, can I ask about just this little chunk here? Why was it zoned open space? Because it does seem to be like right smack in the middle of a bunch of development and oddly shaped.
It was an error, he said, an error.
It is an odd shape. Basically, this area right here, there's a log pond, a former log pond out here. And this shape that you see is actually the boundary of the National Wetlands Inventory wetland that's defined. Those are, basically a starting point. It's not a wetland delineation by any stretch of the imagination. But this was just a mapping error that we didn't catch as we, pulled all the hundreds of mapping changes together that we were doing. The intention was always to make this area here barrel district, it just, in the sausage making, it got left out. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, great question, Meredith. I'm glad that you asked that. And also, Sarah, the gap overlay. I had a couple comments, but I think what I'm going to do is open up the public hearing first and see, do we have any members of the public wanting to comment on this item? And if so, please make your way up to the podium.
Good evening. I'd like to start out by thanking David for all the years that he's put into this project, because this has been a big one. That said, I emailed you guys earlier in the week with some concerns, and number one was the fire district and what they've been addressing all along for the last couple of years. And it's kind of a little bit shocking at this point from the standpoint that what happened on January 2nd with, one of the most serious fires in Arcata. There was 2 stories that probably most of you even witnessed. So basically I was expecting after that there'd be some adjustment in this whole coastal element update, because you want to go up to 7 stories. And we've already had testimony from the fire district from the standpoint, a letter to you, also the planning commission, where they went up and gave an oral presentation that said nothing over 3 stories, no more oral place 4 stories. We can't handle it, So I'm just shocked that after this fire, what happened at the planning commission was, I think the chief went there with the city manager, and no one on the planning commission even asked the most basic question, like, we approved this from the general plan 2045 for 7 stories, and basically we almost lost control of the city. We had every, available truck, ladder truck, city, all through Humboldt County there, and they just barely stopped it. The presentation from the fire chief was that we're lucky that it didn't jump to the theater, then move up the hill. That is just a fact. That's what they said. And, part of the findings that you have to move ahead and vote on this is the public safety aspect. And they have not changed their mind at all. I went to one of their meetings, and basically their firefighters that you said were the heroes had some coming back from training from mid-rises. And let me tell you, they have a little bit of fear in them from the standpoint of what you are proposing to do. And there's no remedy from the standpoint, there's no money that's coming here. I think the plan was, with the standards of coverage, that you were going to then, have McGuire that was going to seek state funding, but McGuire now is running for office in another district. So there is no money to actually supplement what the fire department needs. So you're just basically gambling with, everyone, with the fire department and the citizens of Arcata. So no one's even asked the question about this. So it's just kind of unbelievable. Thanks for your time.
Next. Thank you for your comment.
Hi, my name's Joanne McGarry, and I'm having a hard time hearing some of you and hard time connecting the slides with the people speaking, and just really trying to figure out what's happening here. But I did understand what Waterkeeper had suggested about the outdoor lighting. I live in this area and spend a lot of time, in the neighborhood. And I'm assuming that this outdoor lighting component will apply to living spaces like mine, my apartment complex in the neighborhood, needing to adapt our outdoor lighting appropriately when this is finalized, I guess. But also the industrial section, I just say sea level rise is the big, huge elephant in the room or wave in the room that we're all talking about. And so I just really hope that we look at what the Coastal Commission says with the nature and the environment as first and foremost, I guess, even before any type of development. And how does the redevelopment section of H Street or the Little Lakes area apply to this in terms of zoning and all that? I guess I'm going to have to go back and re-listen to all this and the planning commission thing because I didn't watch it. But I just want the outdoor lighting is really important to me. The more and more that we adapt more appropriately to a night sky, especially a neighborhood like that, the better. And so can you just share with me, I hope, will this affect where people like me live in that neighborhood with the outdoor lighting?
Thank you for your comment. Next.
I want to echo the comments of Mr. Daggett about really thinking really hard about the safety of the proposed Gateway District. I mean, seeing the two-story fire, granted it was an old wooden building, but modern buildings, if we look around the world, are not immune from fires and the effects of smoke and everything else. And when we don't have enough trucks to deal with a two-story fire, we got to really, really consider the recommendations of the fire department in just bringing that height down. I think everybody wants to see the Gateway District happen, and we know it's going to happen. We just want to make sure everybody's safe in that. The other point I want to bring up that I'm not sure ever gets considered in construction of these giant towers, but I have noticed anecdotally an increase in groundwater pressure immediately following the construction of the new Cal Poly towers and the data center on 11th Street. I don't know if it's affected, but I know immediately after that, groundwater pressure increased so much that it burst out of the front of my lawn. And I've had to spend thousands of dollars fixing that. And I guess I just want to know if we can study that effect, and if we do study that effect on construction, and what can we do to prevent further increase in groundwater pressure. And I know that it hit its apex during the king tide, the summer king tide this year, which is when my lawn literally burst. So anyway, I wanted to put that on the radar and also just come back to the fact that that fire was one of the most incredible destructive events I've ever witnessed. And to think of something like that happening in the new district at a level 4 times as high, I can't even imagine how the entire county's firefighting apparatus could be brought to bear on something like that. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment. If we don't have anyone else in person, do we have folks online?
Yes, we have 2 hands raised.
Okay, take those 2, please.
Sylvia, please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Sylvia Van Ryan. I work for Humboldt Waterkeeper, and I want to thank David for being so collaborative with us on the outdoor lighting section. We are really excited to see our edits implemented, and we're stoked to see that there is a blanket color temperature limit of 2700 kelvins. The city is going to be really on the forefront of outdoor lighting regulation with those kinds of limits. I was curious why the commercial industrial regulation has been written to only apply to parking lots. For commercial and industrial lighting, since many commercial properties use really bright floodlights on the outside of their buildings. Sorry, David, that I didn't catch that before. And then there was the BUG or bug rating that was added, which I was actually kind of excited to see because that talks about backlighting and glare and uplight. The rating that was listed is awesome. The U0 and the G1 meet dark sky standards, but the B3 part of that rating goes kind of high on the lumen limit, with 5,000 lumens being at the top of the the limit range. I would prefer to see the B1 rating, which tops out at 1,000 lumens and aligns better with the residential lumen limit. So that means my preferred bug rating would be B1-U0-G1. And yeah, just thank you to David and all the planning staff at the city for being so collaborative and working on this really long project.
Thank you for your comment. Next.
Tamara, please go ahead.
Hi, is this a public comment right now, like in general or in a specific matter?
This is for old business item A for initiating.
Okay, so I'm lowering my hand and I'm going to speak after in public comment that you allow the time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, so I want to thank staff and the Planning Commission and community members for all of their work on this local coastal LCP update. I hear the issues of that, the public has raised and baykeepers as well. Or let me see if I make sure Humboldt waterkeepers, sorry. The local coastal program recognizes public safety, including the Arcata Fire District's operational limits for taller structures, and strengthens disaster preparedness by addressing sea level rise and coastal hazards, and more work and collaboration with the city, Cal Poly Humboldt, and Arcata Fire District is ahead. We have been working and deepening those relationships and collaborating. And another area where we could continue to build on this work is also around extreme rapid hazard, like the sudden land subsidence from a major Cascadia earthquake. While the local program, coastal program, addresses coastal hazards broadly, additional community awareness and preparedness for these sudden scenarios could be valuable. I did have some discussions with staff about the possibility of holding a community disaster preparedness workshop at one of our community centers, which would give residents practical guidance and complement the policies in the local coastal program and enhance overall emergency readiness. These would be the next steps to further engage the community and strengthen our resilience while allowing us to move forward with the adoption tonight. But I guess I did have a question of, there were some changes, some updates, zoning. So how do we move forward on that? And if we can still adopt this tonight with those in mind?
Yeah, you can make the changes tonight before introduction, and then we can add those changes into the documents before they come back for March 18th. And I did want to just point out the section that Sylvia was discussing, where the outdoor lighting standard is for industrial or commercial parking areas. I think this is intended to apply to all outdoor lighting, so we'd be, in support of striking parking and just making this read outdoor lighting. In terms of the bug rating, again, I'm not technically adept.
Excuse me, David, you said just strike parking, but would that include residential?
So the residential section says that they're limited to 1,100 lumens.
Okay.
And so that would stay. And then outdoor lighting I would just strike parking here. Outdoor lighting for commercial and industrial areas shall be limited to 3,200 lumens. It goes on, these aren't the only standards. I mean, it goes on to, make the requirements that they're directed downward, away from adjoining properties, public rights of way, so that no on-site light fixture directly illuminates an area off-site, et cetera, et cetera. So these aren't the only standards.
So then that 1,100 lumens or whatever would apply then for things like apartment complexes, for example.
Correct.
But then maybe if Buddy's Towing is across the way, they would comply to those 3,200 lumen standards.
Correct.
Okay.
So how do people feel about the Sylvia's recommendation on the bug?
I just don't know enough, you know? So I would support it because I think she's probably the expert and understands it a little bit more. But David, I mean, do you have any rationale of why we put the 3 or where that came from, or if that was just not noticed in the recommendation originally?
I'm going to ask our consultant, Ben Noble, to jump on and help us address this.
Hi, yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Yes, so a bug rating of B3, I think is good for more urban areas, and a bug rating of B1 would be more appropriate for open space and conservation areas. So what I might suggest is to have maybe separate bug ratings for different locations within the coastal zone, maybe leaving it at B3 for our more urban areas and having it lower at B1 for the more open space areas. And B refers to the amount of backlight, and B3 has sort of a moderate amount of backlight, where B1 would really be low backlight. So that's my initial suggestion on this topic.
At the risk of having to, create code on the fly, I guess I would, offer that, that the coastal zone, the majority of the city of Arcata's coastal zone is on the edge of open space areas. And so if the council, staff doesn't have a strong recommendation, if the council wanted to take the recommendation to make that B3 everywhere in the coastal zone, that would be a simple fix here. Trying to craft on the fly a way to segregate that in different parts of the city, I wouldn't feel confident that I could do that effectively. So if you want to go that route, I'd say let's bring this back at another meeting. If you wanted to try B1, and then if it doesn't, it's a hassle to change the coastal zoning. I'm just going to be real blunt. It's expensive. It requires a lot of process. The Coastal Commission may take, up to a year and 90 days to, certify a change. And so that would be the risk that we'd be taking by implementing this here. I guess what I would suggest, maybe as an alternative, is that you leave the coastal zoning the way that it is now, the way it's worded now, adopt this, and we have already committed, we have, several people, including Waterkeeper and Supervisor Wilson, encouraging us to make this change citywide, these types of changes citywide. Again, because the coastal zoning is an overlay, if we have something more restrictive in our citywide zoning, we would apply that. And so if we come back in the future, as we're going through this update with Lisa Weiss Consulting, and over the course of the next year, we can put more energy into researching, what's appropriate. And then at that time, the council decides, well, let's make it B1 citywide, or split it into zones, B3 in some areas, B1 in other areas. I can provide you a lot more detailed analysis at that time. Try not to let my anxiousness to get this thing adopted cloud my judgment, so I'm not going to make a strong recommendation. I'm just going to put those out as the options.
Yeah, I would be happy to stay with it as amended up here, just because we kind of, I think, know what that means, and it's less complicated, and then looking forward to that continued work, I'd be comfortable with that.
So with that in mind, of the brief idea of bringing it back to another meeting, I guess I wanted to revisit the Arcata Fire District Public Safety. I did watch that particular Planning Commission meeting when Chief Ammons presented following that devastating fire on the 2nd. And I guess I just want to be sure that, while we are recognizing the operational limits for taller structures, as brought up by a commenter, what is the plan with, the funding that we thought perhaps might have been in the mix, maybe isn't now with those districting changes? And not that that was our only, but I guess, yeah. Did that make any sense?
Which funding are we referring to?
I guess I just would really like to see something strong with regards to operational limits with the taller structures. And we did talk about, some of the other things that we could add, and just still go ahead and move forward. And then we could be building upon, like doing, say, for example, a community disaster preparedness and other things. But how would we deal with the part that is still kind of the, what does the saying go? The elephant in the room. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question sort of focuses on, how are we ensuring that, we're addressing, both our housing need and our fire department's operational needs. And, these are both a work in progress. We've developed a really great working relationship with the fire district. And this predates, our tragic fire downtown. And really was the commitment that we made as we were going through the general plan update, the gateway plan, to work together to find solutions to address the concerns that were raised. And, I'd say that, our collaborations are going well. We're coming up with lots of, ideas on how to partner, how to bring in Cal Poly to that partnership, that, all parties are very actively engaged in that. And, with the gateway, what we ultimately ended up doing was adding requirements to buildings that sort of brought fire protection that is required for taller buildings into smaller buildings. And, we did this in collaboration with the fire marshal and our building official. I really have to give credit to, Joe Bishop, our building official, who came up with this idea as a starting point. And I'd also reflect that the, state fire marshal's report on single-stair building reform kind of echoes this in their recommendation to the legislature. Their report, essentially says that they're not a huge fan of single-stair building reform, but if it does go forward, they'd like to see certain measures in place, and those included a similar, sort of down rating of fire safety into smaller buildings to make sure that those buildings are, safer than they otherwise would be based on building code. So I think that was, like so many things Arcata does, it was a leading move, in a playbook that, maybe others will take into consideration. But yeah, I think there's, it's something that we can't solve in a plan. It's something that we have to solve by working together. And I think we've got strong relationships. Our fire chief is standing in the back of the room, in fact, and watching the proceedings because he really supports the LCP. I made that part up.
So I guess, we spent a lot of money on the standard of cover, and we're satisfied with that.
The standards of cover was not intended to solve this problem. What the standard of cover did was to identify a range of options for fire service, the types of equipment, the types of staffing that would be needed to meet different standards. The National Fire Safety Protection, and I think I got that, I think I made a hash of that, but they put out standards that, you know, are national standards, and, you know, essentially our standard coverage, you know, identified those as sort of the, you know, the gold standard, and what we're working with and what, you know, our fire district and our chief is tasked with is trying to figure out how to make that budget so that we can, you know.
That was my question, is that the part that it didn't do was address how to pay for it or the funding.
Yeah,
what's
and it wasn't-
reverberating in my ear is what Chief Evans said is, we got lucky. Yeah.
I think we got lucky, but I also think we have, you know, a fantastic group of professionals that did an outstanding job. And I think that was primarily, I mean, there was lots of luck involved. You know, there was a fire truck en route that saw the fire, you know, and was ready to deploy immediately. We were lucky because the fire district has such strong relationships with Humboldt Fire and, you know, all the other service agencies that came to support us. You know, and so some of the luck is pure luck. Some of the luck is luck that we're making on a daily basis by, you know, strengthening those relationships. And I think that's what the opportunity of the standard to cover started for the city, Cal Poly, and Arcata Fire District. And what we're continuing to see strengthen, you know, as we continue to plan for development in our community to meet our housing and economic development needs.
So you mentioned Chief Evans, Emmons is in the back of the room here. And procedurally, I don't know if, I'm just wondering if to help, not the word appease, but to help squelch some of the fear that people might be having with having tall buildings. Do we have the capacity? Would it be inappropriate to have Chief Emmons step up for a minute?
So I'm going
and
to
just
ask, can I
speak?
interrupt you for a second? I want to see if I understand.
Mhm.
So this is our coastal plan. So at this time, we still have the opportunity in the future to deal with how tall buildings are, but we can move forward on our coastal plan after all these years. So the concerns you have, do you want to put them somehow or other into this document before we adopt it? I think we're going to be in a lot of trouble if we do.
Yeah, and I understand that. And so I guess while we can still work on these things, they are a work in progress. All of the 3 items that I had mentioned and others have, that we can move forward and it'll allow us to do the adoption tonight with those caveats that were lots of work still to do, or some work still to do.
Yeah, and most of that work is really irrelevant to the plan. You know, it's work that we have to do outside of the plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
I also just want to add, I don't want to go down that pathway of rehashing out the gateway plan, especially while Alex is sitting up here. I just don't think it's appropriate, and that's not, what we're hashing out tonight. I also just want to add, and I said it before we adopted the gateway area plan, before the January 2nd fire, and I will say it again. I largely think we are comparing apples and oranges here. Yes, the fire was tragic. It also took place in a wood building that was built in 1912 that had multiple hidey holes and attics and add-ons and connections that make it difficult to fight fires and make it, difficult to know where and how fire is spreading. And standards for building new buildings, which I have, we've gone over in meetings. It's been backed up by the fire marshal, by our building official, by the building chief, right? There are sprinkler systems. The construction materials are largely much more fire resistant than, again, a wooden building built in the early 1900s. Right, 2 stories and 8 stories. Again, apples, oranges, right? These are not the same types of buildings, and how fire would go through these 2 types of buildings are not the same at all. And so I just, it almost kind of feels icky to me to use that as a platform to, admonish tall buildings, because it's not the same. So I just
are you making
wanted
a
to get that
motion?
out there, and I would love to make the motion, but
Okay.
it's really long and extended, and it's not up there.
And
so.
it's not up there. That's the
But-
big
There it
thing.
is.
It's not up there.
Yeah, and so in that case, I would love to make the motion to approve the amendments to the outdoor lighting standards in section 2.14. 080B, outdoor lighting of the proposed coastal zoning ordinance shown in the track changes on our presentation. Then introduce ordinance number 1581, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Arcata, adopting a comprehensive update to the coastal zoning ordinance as amended, waive reading the text and consent to read by title only. And move to adopt resolution number 256-02, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Arcata, adopting the local coastal element and modifying figure C82 as presented this evening, and move to direct staff to place ordinance 1581 on the March 18th, 2026 consent
Second.
calendar.
I will second that.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Schaefer and a second from Councilmember Stillman. It sounds like we've discussed everything we need to discuss. So all those in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so the motion passes. All right,
thank you.
and no new business tonight. That brings us to oral and written communication. Council values or comments. The public comment period allows people to address the council on matters not on the agenda. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Please note, pursuant to the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss or take action on items not listed on the agenda. Council may respond to statements, and if you are in person and want to give public comment, please line up at the podium. Please raise your hand if you're on Zoom, or press 9 if you're on the phone line if you'd like to make a comment, and we will move online public comment. Can you tell me how many hands we have right now for Zoom?
We have one hand raised on Zoom for public comment.
Okay, we can do that. All right, so let's, please.
Okay. A week ago, I emailed you guys basically on public safety and also the noise element, something that I've been talking about going on 5 years now. I think it started with the war in Ukraine, so that's been going on that long. I mean, I'm just shocked from the standpoint that I've lived in 10 different cities in the state of California, and then you have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars probably on the general plan 2045 on all these elements. And it's only as good as if you're going to really want to enforce anything. So, I mean, you're just wasting our time and energy on updating general plans. When it comes down to it, you're not interested in upholding the law of California. If I had gone to any city in the state of California with complaints, for example, the noise muffler issue, they would have acted on it right away. They wouldn't be like you guys, like, when is that guy going to go away? And this is so we don't have to talk about it. And it's not just the fact that public safety from the standpoint of, you know, I used to say we were the worst in California from the standpoint, the number of people that are getting killed on bicycles and walking in crosswalks, but now we're the second worst. Colin Fish just had an article this week on that. So I happened to run into Bart Silvers, our former chief, and I asked him, Bart, what happened with, 5 years of me going to you and trying to get this resolved? And he said, you know what? We just don't have the resources and a lot of paperwork. And you know what I said to him? I said, did you see that article on the Eureka Police that they have a 233% increase in traffic stops in 11 months period? That's 8,000 stops they did. And you know what the officer said? He said, we don't get any extra time. We're answering our 911 calls and we're doing this at the same time. So I said to Bart, so what happened? He goes, you know what his line was? He said, wow, I guess they got a new chief there and they were making things happen. So that's what I got to say to Arcata, the standpoint that you got excuses after excuses after excuses, and you're not dealing with these problems. You're just setting up goals and you never go after any of these problems, really. And I would maybe you need to talk with Chris Ortega about this, but when I had an open house before he became chief, he said, well, I got a really progressive council. I got the community out there. It's kind of like you're asking for law and order, and I'm asking for law and order from the standpoint to keep people from being killed in crosswalks and on their bicycle and also on the noise thing. So, it's time to get your act together.
Thank you for your comment. Next.
Hi, my name's Joanne McGarry. Going to talk about 3 things. I created Brighton Green. Well, today I'm Brighton Orange. And I'm bright and orange to promote what's happening, the 10th annual Zero to Fierce Women's Festival. And it kicked off last night with an incredible concert by Carsey Blanton. But the Mad River Union has an insert of all the amazing things, the women on the dais there, and even staff and non-women. Lots of amazing things are happening in the next couple of weeks, and I really encourage you to participate. I would love to see you at some of these things. It's the Arcata Playhouse is doing some amazing events like this, and this is their 10th annual, and there's that. So I just want to say that as thing number one. Thing number two, ADA. I hope that somebody who's hard of hearing, and I'm going to invite some of my friends to come to these meetings, because I really want people to know that it's really hard when people mumble or don't speak into the microphone. And I know it's even hard for people who are shy and not comfortable speaking up here. And it gets picked up on the video, but in the room, it doesn't get picked up. And there used to be hearing devices that were a headphone that worked and functioned, and I could ask for them and put them on and everything functioned. Now they changed the hearing devices. There's only one, and it needs an antenna that supposedly needs something drilled into the wall, and there's no timeline given to me of when that's going to happen. And accessibility for people of all types is really, really important. And that comes to also how things are viewed on the screen. So if I go home and look at this video, I see Mr. Loya there on the screen talking about what's on this screen inside the room, but it's not on the video. So people are not getting a picture of what's kind of happening. So this brings me to item number 3. This is the 2nd year anniversary when we finally successfully created a ceasefire resolution and passed it on March 6th of 2024. And at that time, actually, in the discussion, the screen had the dais and it had me talking. So you could see all of us in the discussion. And that's the value of being in this room, but it's not the value that people get when they're watching a video. So I would just like us to really reconsider how we do things. And I just really want to say peace in the world matters, and it matters here at home.
Thank you for your comment. Can we now hear from our person waiting on Zoom, please?
Yes, Tamar, please go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I want to speak briefly about a dangerous pattern that many people may not immediately recognize, but which has very deep historical roots. For centuries, Jewish community have faced a form of anti-Semitism known as blood libel. Historically, blood libel was a false accusation that Jews harmed or murdered innocent people, often children, for sinister purposes. These lies spread fear, violence, and justify persecution against the Jewish communities across Europe and the Middle East for hundreds of years. Today, we're seeing a modern version of this the same phenomenon. Instead of medieval myth, today accusation rapidly spread claims and portray Jews or the Jewish states as uniquely cruel or deliberately targeting innocent people, often before facts are verified. In the modern information environment, this accusation can spread globally within minutes. For example, we sometimes see immediate claims circulating online alleging that Israeli deliberately bombed school, hospital, or civilian, even when intelligent or independent verification has not yet confirmed that actually happened. When such accusations are presented as a fact without evidence, when they fit into a pattern of portraying Jews or Israel as uniquely malicious, It echoes the same dynamic that historically fueled blood libel. Being responsible with information matters. Targeting in conflict zones deserve careful investigation and empathy for all innocent people affected. But spreading unverified claims that demonize an entire people or nation can inflame hatred and contribute to anti-Semitism here at home. Israel did not bomb the girls' school. This information should be spread far and wide. Our communities should stand firmly against anti-Semitism in all its form, old and new. This means recognizing how historical prejudice can reappear in modern narrative, especially in moments of global tension. I encourage our city to continue promoting respectful dialogue, critical thinking, and
Thank you,
commitment.
Tamara. Your time is up. All right. So that would bring us now to council reports. I'll start on my left this time.
Okay. So I think it was last Saturday, not this I don't, the week before last Saturday, I believe, Packout Green was out at the where the kinetic sculptures are located. And so I went out to the Packout Green. I try to go to those when they're in Arcata. I made a decision I was only going to pick up nails because I really don't like flat tires. So I had probably 1/8 of a bucket full of nails. And I think those all came from pallets when pallets were burnt and then the nails all show up. And so they probably had about 40 people out there working on that space to clean it up. And this is the second time they've done it. The other thing I wanted to mention is that our mayor has been talking about wanting to have some kind of a disaster meeting. And I wanted to point out that Startup Humboldt is going to have, I don't have it in front of me, but I did send it to you, Kimberly, that they're going to be having a training for disaster preparedness for businesses. And so I would suggest that that's something we should take advantage of, or those people you're worried about.
Well, I mean, it's for businesses, so it is restricted, and it has a different slant for it, just to make that clear.
But I think Kuna has been doing a good job on doing that. So the other thing, I went to the wastewater meeting that they had at, for people to talk about the water rates, where Tabitha talked about. Can you hear me okay? Okay. The water rate meeting, and then after that I went to the WIN dinner. And I was looking up what else I've done because I'm never too sure. I just do things and I don't really pay attention to reporting what I've done. But Packout Green, I think, is something we all should look at doing. And the next time we have another one, and I don't know if you're all on the list for Packout Green, but if not, you might want to be. And it's 1 hour. It's amazing what they can accomplish in 1 hour and the number of people that were there working. Probably the youngest one was 8 years old. Maybe I was the oldest one, who knows? But thank you.
Had a Redwood Coast Energy Authority meeting. We had a presentation on a recent cost of service study that we did, which is going to take a look at how we set our rates, because they're currently always set a half a cent below PG&E's, but this would look at setting the rates in a model that directly correlates to what it actually costs us to provide the service to customers, instead of following what PG&E does, because PG&E has a lot of volatility in the way that they set their rates. As folks might know, our PG&E base rate is supposed to be going down in the month of March, so that's something maybe to look forward to, but not for the Redwood Coast Energy Authority and you're trying to pay for all of the contracts that you're already in. But alas, that's what PG&E gets to do to us. So it was an interesting meeting, and there's going to be a lot more coming to the public and definitely workshops and information about that. So I'll keep it coming to our meetings and giving the update. I also had an Equity Arcata meeting last Wednesday. Tonight is actually the last night of the Latino Film Festival over at the Minor, which is always an event that Cal Poly puts on and that Equity Arcata has supported since Equity Arcata has existed, and we've always been a part of that. And it's been happening for 30 some years in this area, which is really exciting. And then kicking off today also is the Social Justice Summit at Cal Poly Humboldt. And tomorrow morning, Fernando, who's our university liaison for Equity Arcata, will be doing a session on othering and belonging, and there's lots of other sessions happening, and they have information on Facebook and on their website about when those different workshops are happening. I attended Humboldt Hot Air's 1 year anniversary. I don't remember what they called it. It was a cabaret. That's what they called it, with a bunch of great different performances of just different folks that are involved in the radio or adjacent to the radio. And so it was really cool to come together with the community for that. And then I think it was a Zero to Fierce event, but I guess it was on Saturday, so I don't even think March had started. But I attended one of the events that they were doing at the summit with Women on Air Humboldt. They did a DJ workshop with all female DJs locally, so that was pretty cool. There's a chamber mixer tomorrow at Humbrew's from 5:30 to 7 that I will hopefully be attending. And then I also had the opportunity to check out the new Our Space RV trailer, and it was awesome. I had some donated bean bags coming from my school that they had requested that we were trying to get rid of, so it worked out, and was able to go there, and Caroline showed me all around. I got to pet some cute dogs and talk to some really lovely folks and just see what they were doing down there. And so I recommend, they were parked down at the annex that day, and I know we'll be probably parked at the annex more often. I don't know if David, if you know the dates now, probably not. But it's worth going to check out. Council members, I recommend it just to see what they're doing down there.
All right. Our REDAC meeting this month was canceled. Let's see, I went and attended a community ambassador meeting and got to see what they were up to. Just a really great group of people that it's amazing how much they know and care about the community and have such a relationship with the people that they're serving. Thursday, I attended the first planning session for the economic strategic planning meeting. I'm going to the next one tomorrow. I'm so excited about that, and I can't wait until it comes before us because there's such a great, amazing group of people in the room and great ideas being lobbed about. So I'm over the moon about that. I serve on the Access Humboldt board. So on Saturday, I attended the cast and crew call. Access Humboldt's doing some really cool things. Lots of different workshops, and the Illuminate 2026 is on March 19th from 5:30 to 8 at the Eureka Theater. And that's it. Thank you.
So I didn't report on HTA, but I would like this, it was interesting today. The ridership for the Jack Pass is just over the top between the dorms and the campus and going back and forth. And so the ridership that they've had, it's like 398% more than they've had them before with the Jack Pass. So it's amazing what's happened with that. And what they feel like, people going back and forth between the dorms are using their Jack Pass, and they're beginning to understand how easy it is to use it. Therefore, it makes it easier for them to get on the regular system, to go to Eureka or Trinidad or wherever they may, because they're becoming really accustomed to how to do that. There are some issues, though. We did talk about HCOG and the difference between HTA and how HCOG has approved some budgetary things that do affect HTA drastically. And I don't know how that's going to work its way out, but I know that it's all around Fortuna. And I know you're serving on HCOG right now, and so it was a long conversation we had. It was an hour. We talked about what went on in Fortuna and what HCOG's board is approving and what does not work for HTA. So it's a difficult situation. And I think HTA will be okay, but I don't think Fortuna will be. I'm working out the financials that HCOG came up with. So we'll see what happens, but it was a very difficult situation. So I don't know how to handle it with, with an HCOG member, but in the future, maybe we can talk about some of these things. We also, they're going to be having a stakeholders workshop, and it's going to be coming up in April. And it's happening up at Redwood Lodge, our Redwood Lodge. And they want, people that are interested in transit can come to get the, they don't have to go to the regular meetings, but they can come to the end of the day for 4 to 5 to have a recap. Because the operators, it'll be like for operators all during the day, but the recap would be interesting for elected officials. So I'll give this to Nitra and he can put it out to you all. So thank you.
Well, it sounds like you covered a lot of what I was going to share about HCOG, but yeah, just to clarify, Fortuna does have an opportunity to still weigh in. We did move forward on the regional transportation program. Words do matter. They had taken out crisis on the climate crisis. We have put that back in. We are holding on to having funding consistency. And then also I did attend Equity Arcata, and I don't know that I've done anything else, so I think that's all I have. I guess with that, this meeting is adjourned. Oh, yes, of course, right. Very, very muy importante. All right, so we will be confirming the 3 fiscal year 2026-2027 budget study sessions for April 6th, 8th, and 29, 2026. Each will be held at 3:30 p.m. right here in this council chamber. Is there anything else that anybody, I know you have to have something, Alex. No, just kidding. All right, this meeting is adjourned.
I just felt it was important to talk about HTA and the ridership.